Christian Church. We ask that if you are able, would you please stand as we sing together, Welcome the Healer to our God and Savior.
Good morning, my friend. Good, thank you.
sisters and brothers, made one in your spirit, we gather for worship, O holy God. Come alive through scripture and music. Speak to us in the word that is shared. Befriend us at the table where all are welcome. Today we give thanks for this church and the people who gather in this space. At the same time, we are thankful for your Church Universal, worshiping in different languages and with unique customs. Let us be united through your gift of love, made available in Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, again, good morning and welcome. If you would all reach around, welcome one another, give a handshake or a hug.
something looks different up front today. We're celebrating World Communion Sunday. And so we're singing songs about coming to the table and being invited to the table and leaving your burdens at the table. And so more to come about that, but we invite you to start wrapping your heart and your mind about what it means to come together at this table.
And I am glad that you are here this day. If you are a guest or a visitor with us, we want to extend a special welcome to you. And as Mariah suggested earlier, it is World Communion Sunday. So things are a little different here. We'll come back next week. Things won't quite look this way. But World Communion Sunday is the Sunday when most every Christian tradition, denomination, in the United States or around the globe celebrate communion. If they do it weekly, then well, it's not that out of the ordinary. But if they do it monthly or quarterly or on special occasions, this will be one of the Sundays. As a way of saying, despite our differences, we are one in Christ Jesus, the one that we meet in the breaking of the bread and the sharing of the cup. Cypress Creek Christian Church is a community that strives to put love first in all things. That is our vision and mission as a congregation, and we believe it is embodied in part in the experience that we find in it. I want to remind all of you this morning about the blue cards that you find in your worship guides. Will you please fill them out? Let us know how we can pray for you this coming week, and you'll have an opportunity at the time of communion to place those in the offering trays here. Unless you think about joining, and then I'll say, keep up with it. You can give it to me or to one of our elders later in this service. There is an elders meeting tonight at 4 o'clock. Just want to remind all the church elders about that important meeting. And then I want to give a shout out to everyone who helped make Blessing of the Animals yesterday a great success. It was just a lot of fun up here, and I got to do my annual Blessing of a Snake, which always is kind of a fun thing that I do with that. But it's a wonderful time to just meet people and those that consider a part of their family the feathered or furry or whatever creatures that live in their home. I think it is nice for them to bring it into a setting like this and for that gift in their household to receive blessing. I just want to lift up that this week, the Sunday night study and the study on Wednesdays is going to be happening. We'll pick it up a week from now, so just FYI on that. And then finally, I want to lift up life, leading loving individuals from exploitation, our ministry that is in response to human trafficking. This Tuesday, the chapel out here will be open all day. If you can slide in for a time of prayer. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever time you can give. We take this very seriously and recognize that one of the things that we can do is we can lift up both those that still find themselves in that horrific experience, but also those that are trying to reclaim their lives after the experience. So again, this Tuesday, the chapel will be open all day. Well, on this World Communion Sunday, I'm looking at a passage from Luke's Gospel, the 17th chapter, and I want you to hear these words. The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." The Lord replied, "If you had the faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you. Would any of you say to your servant who had just come in from the field after plowing and tending the sheep, 'Come, sit down for dinner'? Wouldn't you say instead, 'Fix my dinner. Put on the clothes of a table servant and wait on me while I eat and drink. After that, then you can go and eat and drink.' You won't say thank you to the servant because the servant did what you asked the servant to do. In the same way, when you have done everything required of you, you should say, 'We servants deserve no special praise. We have only done our duty.'" May the God who inspired these words inspire us as we listen and as we respond. Would you join me in a word of prayer? Holy God, may the words of the Scriptures, the songs that we have sung, guide us to a place where we are able to hear, to experience, and to follow you. Now give blessing to the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts. Amen. I would go to visit Edith every once in a while. And she would, within 3 minutes of my arrival, have the familiar words. She would say to me, "Bruce, I'm living on borrowed time." Now, Edith was in her mid-90s at the time, but it's still pretty good health. But she would say to me, "I'm living on borrowed time." But one of those visits, when I came in to see her, after she said her usual line, "I'm living on borrowed time," her great-grandson, who was there, who happened to be visiting that day, cleared his throat. And she looked at him, and they looked at each other, and she got a big grin on her face, and she looked back at me, and she said, "My great-grandson has corrected me. I'm not living on borrowed time. I'm living. And every bit of life is a gift." Her great-grandson went on to explain to me that when we use the word borrowed, and let me add, her great-grandson was an Episcopal priest. He went on to explain to me that when we use the word borrowed, the assumption is that it's something we need to return. And we usually, when we borrow something, want to return it just the way we received it. But life, he said, is a gift. It is a gift to be used to its fullest. And when we are done, the hope is that gift is well used and well worn. It's interesting how a change of language can change our perspective. The disciples had a specific perspective, one that was common in society, and it was part of the cultural expectation. They were very concerned with ranking, with placement, with height, size, strength, and it appears that Jesus found that all to be nonsense. Because at least as I read this, it sure sounds like Jesus responds with some sarcasm. His words even sound a little snarky, for lack of a better word. The disciples said, "Jesus, increase our faith." They're thinking big. They don't want a medium-sized faith. They don't want a large faith. They want to supersize their faith. They think faith is something you can quantify. You can think of it in regard to the quantity of faith. But isn't that a little like pulling out a tape measure to measure the depth of someone's grief? We don't measure grief. We don't try to see, well, this person is grieving more than this person. It's not a competition, it's grief. So Jesus has an interesting response. If you had the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree to uproot itself and be planted in the sea. And if you said it, it would obey. That sounds to me like sarcasm. And I should know, sarcasm runs in my family. My brother would say to me, "You are quite the sleuth, Sherlock," when I would state the obvious. And one of the common things in my household was to say, "Can I encourage you to do some soul searching? Because maybe, just maybe, you'll actually find one." We were harsh, I know it. I had to learn, though, to dampen my sarcasm when Zach came into our lives. Because as he started to grow a little older, it was shocking to me. Shocking, I say, to discover that a 3-year-old does not understand sarcasm. That was sarcasm, if you didn't get it. I think Jesus is using sarcasm in part because he's trying to demonstrate the foolishness, the absurdity of quantifying faith. My faith is better than your faith. Her faith is greater than his faith. His words demonstrate that he has no faith at all. Jesus said, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, something so small that if you were more than 2 or 3 feet away from it, you wouldn't even notice it. Well, if you had that size of faith, he says, you could tell the mulberry tree to uproot itself and go replant itself in the sea. Why would you do that? Why would you tell a mulberry tree to go plant itself in a large body of water? It's nonsense. Or is it sarcasm? Saying something that sounds like nonsense to make a point. To challenge what the disciples were asking, we want you to increase our faith. Won't you do that for us, Jesus? I remember being, shall we say, a little bit of a jerk. I was much younger. I've outgrown that now. But I was refusing to, well, somebody else has a different I was refusing to help out with some household activities. And I was told, Bruce, you give me a better understanding of the letter G in the word lasagna. I had to think about it for a few moments and then realized that basically you could probably do without the letter G in the word lasagna, or almost. But as it took me a while to think about it, the comments finally put me in my place. I understood what was being suggested. Think about it for a minute. We tend to fight over who is at the top, claiming the biggest and the best when we're talking about faith. When we're talking about faith in regard to God's unconditional, unmerited gift of love, a gift that is given to us with no strings attached, it's like fighting over who unwrapped the gift better than the other. Our fighting over this gift, I think, ignores, contradicts, might even undermine the very nature of the gift itself. Then Jesus follows that with a scenario. Would any of you ask your servant, it could be translated as slave, after he's worked a long, hard day out in the field, would you say to that servant, oh, come on over here, sit down, join me for dinner tonight? No. You would tell the servant, go fix me a meal. Change your clothes, then bring it out to me, and then serve me, and then you can get something to eat or drink. And wouldn't you think that it would be nonsense to thank your servant? That's just what a servant does. They don't deserve gratitude. It's interesting, Jesus, in sharing this scenario, intends for his audience to connect with the one who owns the servant until we get to the end. And then he spins things, changing the perspective, saying, in the same way, when you've done everything required of you, you should say, we servants deserve no special praise. We have only done what we ought to have done. We've only done our duty. Jesus changes the perspective of his listeners with just a few words. We servants don't deserve any gratitude for doing what we ought to do. Jesus begins sarcastically challenging any attempt to quantify faith, and then spins things to suggest that gratitude should not be expected by those who are faithful. Receiving a thank you assumes that we are the ultimate source of the gift. But Jesus says we have only done what we ought to have done. The Greek word here that we translate is ophelo, and it carries with it a sense of owing someone. It carries with it a sense of being in debt to somebody. It's the same word that we find in 1 John 3:16, not the Gospel of John 3:16, but 1 John, where it says this: this is how we know love. Jesus laid down his life for us, and so we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. There's a sense of obligation, not an expectation to receive gratitude, for Jesus is the one who inspired this, created the possibility, acted first, Jesus is the giver of the gift, and our response is not to expect gratitude, but to allow our response to be our gratitude. Some 20 years ago, I made a request to the members of my church that I was serving at the time. I needed some shelves built for the children's area, and a guy stepped up, and he built some beautiful shelves. A couple weeks later, my secretary came into my office to say, "Hey, are you going to be around for about an hour?" I said, "Yeah, I should be." "Well," she said, "the guy that had built the shelves, he wanted to swing by and talk to me." As she walked out of the office there, I thought to myself, I wonder what... I don't think I ever said thank you to him for building those shelves. Oh boy. So I waited about 40 minutes. He walks into my office, and I tried to get a jump on things here and try to, oh gosh, I want to just thank you. He just interrupted me, and he said, "I just came by to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve my church with my gifts." I was kind of stunned. I should still say thank you. He said, no. I should never expect a thank you for serving my Lord. Whoa. That was powerful. It sometimes feels like the church, in following Jesus, is in a competition, focusing on the ranking, the placement, the height, the size, the strength. Our bickering and our brawling over bigger, better, brighter, more beautiful sounds a lot like nonsense. When in fact, what we are doing is we are holding this precious gift that has been given to us, the gift of God's unconditional and unmerited love. It is a gift with no strings attached to it. And when we realize that it's truly a gift and given in such abundance, all we need to do is let go of it in our gratitude, blessing those around us and realizing that in our giving away of it, it does not reduce the power in our own lives. A number of years ago, I was serving on one of our denominational boards. I served on that board with a guy named Chester. Chester owned a small business called Quick Trip. If you know, it's kind of like the Buc-ee's north of us. 750 stores. Chester, though, was one of the most down-to-earth people you would ever meet. He was generous beyond measure, both to his community, but also to the church. He's a member of our denomination, a member at Harvard Avenue Christian Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Chester, though, there's a story told about him. He was at a big banquet where he was being recognized. He was up at the big main table there, and as he was up there eating his dinner, he looked out at everybody who was being served, and he noticed those who were dressed in their little tuxedos, running around, bringing out the food, placing it in front of people, refilling drinks, cleaning up the dishes, bringing out the dessert and the coffee. He's so impressed by it. And so after everything was over, he stuck around. He made a quick phone call, and then when most everybody else was gone and the servers were pulling the linens off the table, he called them all together and said, "I want you all, as soon as you're done here, to go out for dinner. Not here at the hotel. I made reservations for you at a certain restaurant about a block and a half away. One of the finest restaurants in Tulsa." Now it was like 10:30 at night. But Chester had the capacity to call up and say, "Hey, make space." And so he said, "I want you to go and enjoy dinner tonight for all you've done." And then he went home. Well, that group of servers got together. And they said, we were just doing what we were paid to do. Maybe we weren't paid very much, but we were just doing what we were asked to do. And so what they did when they were done is they went out on the streets and found about 24 homeless people and took them to the restaurant and allowed them to be served this glorious meal as they went home. There's something that happens when people recognize that they have truly been given a gift. When they hold that gift, and then they realize that it was given to them unconditionally and in such abundance that it is something that they can release upon the world around them and not feel like they are left with nothing. The gifts that God gifts us with, day in and day out, this unmerited, unconditional love. I think we can just sometimes in life go through not even noticing it, and then all of a sudden it falls in our lap. We go, oh my, what a gift. And suddenly it's not about a battle over who understands it the best or who unwrapped it in a greater way or anything. It's a gift that I didn't deserve, but a gift I've been given. And I only hope that maybe in some small way, because I've been gifted, I can be a blessing to others. Will you join me in prayer? This morning we paused long enough to express our gratitude for your love. A gift given, not because we deserved it, but because it was a gift. We paused long enough to say thank you to you, gracious God. Too often we're drawn into a game. Who has the best faith, the biggest faith, the most thoughtful faith? Yet you call us to step outside the games, to look around and see those immediately around us who are in need of love, kindness, compassion, friendship. Faith is not something we quantify, and the faithfulness that we share is not something that we arrogantly take credit for. It's all a gift. And our lives are to be a grateful expression of that gift. Continue to teach us, whether it is through a parable, a poem, or even some sarcasm or a surprising story. Continue to form and shape us as those who have decided to try to put love first in all things. Lord God, if we spend all our time debating over who has the best faith or the greatest faith, no one will be blessed because of the love that you've given us. Let us step away from the bickering and find those around us, those who are probably a whole lot closer than we ever imagined, who just need to experience the love that you have gifted us. We offer these words now in the name of the one who embodied that love, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Come to the table.
Ted Towns was a professor of theology, and occasionally he would show up in class with a very bright shirt or a really loud tie. And he would say, "This is my thank you shirt," or "This is my gratitude tie." And we'd all laugh and stuff. But after a while, there's some curiosity, what's going on. And come to find out, when he was growing up, at Thanksgiving, when most people were decorating their tables with fall colors, a cornucopia with things that are orange and green, and his grandmother started a tradition by decorating the table with the brightest colors possible. Colors that just screamed, because the belief is that our gratitude should not be muted, should not be quiet, it should be loud. I love that image. And that's the reason this morning that we have these bright colors at the communion table. They're loud, as our gratitude should be loud. We have been gifted with this amazing gift of God's unmerited and unconditional love. And our thank you shouldn't be muted and held very quiet. No, it should be so loud that others can hear it, can experience it, will come to know it. Well, as you can guess this morning, things are a little different. And you will find here different stations. Now, you're not to go to every station. You're to just choose one. But you are invited, if you're in this main section here, to come forward, to take a piece of bread. You can rip off of the chunk of bread if you want, or take one of the pre-cut pieces, it's up to you, and to dip it in the cup and partake of the elements. There are 2 stations up in the balcony on either side, and those seated on the back row, the elements will be brought to you if you need to have them brought to you. Oh, now, I forget. None of those breads are gluten-free. So if you do need gluten-free, you'll find it here in this tray. In our tradition, we say the table does not belong to us. We would not put on the back of this property of Cypress Creek Christian Church. It belongs to Jesus Christ. And the invitation that his life extends to the world, an invitation in love, is an invitation extended to everyone. And so you do not need to be a part of this church, part of our tradition. We invite you to come, because we believe there's no better way of embodying the love of our God revealed in Jesus Christ. In just a few moments, after we sing together and share together in a Eucharist litany, we will come together. Let us now prepare our hearts and
Jesus sits at the table, breaking the bread with his friends. Teaching what he is able
And the table will be wide.
And the welcome will be wide.
And the arms will be wide open.
To gather us in.
And our hearts will open wide.
To receive.
And we will come as children who trust.
There is enough.
And we will come.
Unhindered and free.
And our aching
Will be met with bread.
and our sorrow.
Will be met with wine.
And we will open our hands.
To the feast without shame.
And we will turn.
Toward each other without fear.
And we will give up.
Our appetite for despair.
And we will taste.
And know of delight.
And we will become bread.
For a hungry world.
And we will become drink.
For those who thirst.
And the blessed.
Will become the blessing.
And everywhere.
Will be the feast.
The table is set for all of humanity.
The bread of heaven broken and shared.
The cup of salvation is offered without condition.
Thanks be to God.
Let us pray.
God of love and life, we ask your blessing on the gift of this meal. We know that the bread and cup, the body and life were given freely to all. We are so grateful for the challenge to meet others here at the table with the same absolute love we have received. For it is here that we are given the gift of service. As we share this meal with communities around the world, remind us of our call to love all of your children. It isn't always easy to live the love first life, but it is a gift to strive for it every day. Hear our prayers as we lift our voices together as one, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
All are welcome at this table. Please come.
Every part of take this life and breathe on. It's all that is known. You can have it all. Every
myself, it was to try to reverse this. Usually you come up and somebody is serving you. But today it was like coming up after all the work had been done, after you had served somebody else, and there were some leftovers on the table. And that's okay. Because when it is the Lord's table, it doesn't matter how late we come, it doesn't matter how many other people have come, there is always plenty to be found at the table. Here at Cypress Creek Christian Church, as we do every Sunday, we extend an invitation. It is an invitation to connect one's life with the community of faith, believing that there is something important about being on this journey, doing it though in community. But it's also an invitation for someone to give his or her life to Jesus Christ. And today, if you wish to respond to that invitation, you can either come forward as you're singing, or you can meet with one of our elders or pastors after the service. Let us now join our voices in our song of discipleship.
Sing
see better or best. We can get into all kinds of debates over who has the better faith, and we can think to ourselves, I just need to increase my faith, and then I can go and do something. Well, if we spend an eternity trying to figure out how to improve our faith, we'll never actually live our faith. And so there's plenty of folks right in front of us, we meet every week, who need a little bit of love, a little kindness, a little compassion. And so let us put some of that other stuff behind us and focus on the people that are in front of us, recognizing that God has gifted us with an amazing gift, that even by letting it go, it will still be here. I want to remind you about our script cards out here for things that you may need. Also, as we look towards the holidays, you may use some of those as gifts. We receive a percentage back on all those script cards that you buy. Comes back to the church. Some of them are 1.5%, but some are 6, 8, 12% of what you buy. And it does add up. So I hope you might consider supporting the church in that way. I invite you to grab the hand of somebody close. And let's join together in our common prayer. Gracious God, may your love